Greetings, my fellow crafters and creatives. Welcome back to another episode of Bobolog. My name is Bobbie Olan and this is my vlog where I like to share all of my knitting and crafty adventures with you. I have forgotten what I am supposed to say next. Oh, I am very excited to announce that this is episode 50. It has taken me a lot longer to get here than I would have hoped or liked, but I did take like a year and a half off and have only just come back recently, as you will know if you have watched my last couple of episodes. And today I have a lot to share with you, so I'm not going to do a lot of live chatter here at the beginning of the episode. It is June 7, I believe, so it is the first Sunday of June. It's a long weekend at the moment. It's the King's birthday long weekend, which still feels weird to say instead of Queen's birthday long weekend. And it is actually a beautiful sunny day out today. There was a good amount of sun yesterday as well, but the week before this has been completely miserable, really heavy rains, quite heavy winds as well, and I have not been feeling the best. I've got just like sinus things going on, and the house that we're in at the moment, it's quite old and it's quite drafty, and all of the windows are still old, like single pane glass, so a lot of like noise and cold come in. So neither my partner or I have been sleeping well at all because the wind and the rain has been quite loud, which hasn't been fun, and I'm sure has also contributed to both of us feeling a little bit under the weather lately. And I'm sure my feeling not great was also not helped by the fact that yesterday, after I went to my first Saturday crafternoon at Little Woolly Makes, which is my local yarn store, in the evening I walked along the beach to go and order us some dinner from one of the general stores around here that was doing like a Saturday burger dinner thing. So I walked there and I ordered it, and my partner picked me up so that we could bring the food home and eat it here. Anyway, I walked along the beach to get there because that's the quickest route. And while it wasn't super cold, which was great, it was the first time I walked along the beach with a high tide, and you could kind of see where the water was mostly coming up to, because you'd get the sand and it'd have a bit of a drop off, because all of the sand beyond that point had been, getting washed away by the tide. And I was trying to take a photo of how close it was coming to my feet, so I was standing at the very edge of one of those like sand duney things just before it dropped off, and waiting there with my camera, paying more attention to my phone and seeing that it was seeing my feet than I was to the actual wave coming in. And when it did come in, it was a lot bigger than I expected, and next thing I knew, like I had water like up to my knees filling up my boots, and I was just running away. And I wish I was filming instead of trying to get a photo, because that would have been quite a funny experience to get on camera. But yeah, so I just walked the rest of the way with very wet boots, and I was just very grateful that I wasn't wearing hand knit socks, because it was some other cheap nasty socks that got ruined. Anyway, I was not meant to go into much of a story, and I was just going to dive straight in because I have a lot to share with you today. Let me just check that my camera, I have a really old phone that I'm filming on, and the battery isn't great, so I have this paranoia about it dying on me. And I actually have a new camera, which I'm very excited about, on its way. So hopefully the next episode will be filmed with a proper camera and I won't have this fear anymore. I keep stalling. I should get into talking about stuff. The first thing that I wanted to jump into is craft with friends. So I am planning to start my first, I still keep wanting to say knit along, my first make along with you guys. So with any of you who are wanting to join along with me, I am doing a Garter and Granny along, running from the 1st of July until the 31st of December. And I'd sort of just been figuring it out in my previous episode. And I mean, it's going to be a really casual craft along, make along, whatever you want to call it. So as long as whatever you're making is started on or after the 1st of July and it incorporates garter stitch and or granny stitch, then it qualifies. And if you want to share things on social media, please use the hashtags hashtag #GGMakeAlong or hashtag Garter Granny Along, and then I'll be able to see your projects there. I haven't really had people getting in touch saying that they would like a Ravelry group or some kind of forum where we can all chat together and share things. But if at any point you would appreciate having that, please let me know and I'll be happy to set that up. Otherwise, just the hashtag on Instagram, I think will suffice for this first very casual craft along of mine. It is annoying now that on Instagrams you can't follow hashtags, so I just have to remember regularly to search those actual hashtags and see if any of you are posting things that come up. Is there anything else I wanted to say? Oh my goodness, I forgot to get one thing, so I am going to pause here and go and grab that. Silly me forgetting this when it was first on my list. I have here a swatch that I knit years ago for the big project that has prompted me to start this make along. And this is a swatch for the optic blanket. This is a free pattern from Pearl Soho, and I have actually bought the recommended yarn for it, which is sadly a discontinued yarn. It was called Flax Down, and it's got like linen and wool and I can't even remember what else in it, but it has this fabulous sort of like fuzzy halo that I'm not sure if you can see there. And this one, I did actually get the colors the wrong way around. This slip stitch detail that you see running diagonally through it here, that's meant to be in the dark color, and that's how I want it to be. I mean, you can obviously do them whichever way you like, but this is done, this square is done in garter stitch with obviously some slip stitch details along those diagonals. I did have a look on Ravelry last night just to look again. Like, I'm set on my colors because these are the colors that I have, but there were some really fun projects there using multiple colors of yarn. My favorites were the ones where it was in a gradient. So I can't remember the name of the Ravelry user whose one I really liked, but it's currently on the first page if you go and look at the projects. But it's the main color used is like a white one like this, and then the contrast color does a gradient, and in some of them they are going from like red to light, and some of them they are going from a light color to the red color. So it's really beautiful effect. Go check that out if you're interested. They're really nice. Lots of options that I would love to do, but really I probably only have one of these blankets in me. You may notice, if it is picking up, that there are actually 3 different contrast colors in here. So the outer one is a browner color, and then it's more of a charcoal, and then it's blacker in the center here. That is because when I bought the yarn for this, Pearl Soho was actually discontinuing it, and by the time I had realized that and gone to buy the yarn, they didn't have any of the dark color left. So I bought the full quantity for the blanket in the cream color, and I dyed what I needed to be in the black myself. So that was just a couple of different goes of me trying to get a good black. I think what I had done is I had bought 2 different dyes, and maybe one of them was using one, the second color is using the other, and the third maybe I had combined them. I did do like a vlog style video in one of my previous episodes many years ago when I did it, but I guess it doesn't really matter because I have what I have and that's just what it's going to be. So that is going to be my number 1 entry for the Garter and Granny along. Obviously a garter stitch project, but I do also want to do a granny stitch project, and the one that I have been wanting to do for a while now, but have sort of been trying / hoping to build up my scraps to do it, is a big giant granny square hexagon, granny hexagon blanket. I have lots of hexagons, hexagonish shaped stitches, patterns, whatever you call them, patches, blocks, I guess blocks, favorited and queued in my Ravelry, because I would also really like to make a blanket that is made up of all sorts of different styles of hexagons. So just like lots of different hexagon designs, if that's making any sense. But the first one that I really want to do is just like a simple granny hexagon blanket made up of mainly scrap yarns, if I can get away with that. The inspiration for that for me was because on K3N's channel, which I have talked about a bit, there are a couple of episodes that she's done in the past where in the background you can see a big giant hexagon blanket, and they are big hexagons, which is what I want to do, not just like, you know, little ones like maybe 10 centimeters diameter, which is sort of in my head what I expect normal block sizes to be. But yeah, I kind of want to mimic that and do big giant ones. I didn't make note of what the main pattern, let me just look up on Ravelry here. I have in my favorites, if you look me up on Ravelry, I've made a few different bundles. One is Garter, one is Granny, obviously the pattern's incorporating those, but I do also have a bundle that I've called Bestagons, because hexagons are the Bestagons. And the main one that I'm going to be referencing when I do that one is the Hex Scrap Afghan by Christine Jewett. Well, it'll be down linked in the show notes if you want to look that up. But that is a free pattern. That one is made using worsted weight yarn, but I plan to do it out of fingering weight yarn. So I will just go down in whatever hook size I think will be the most appropriate. So I think that is all that I wanted to share. Oh, the last thing that I wanted to mention, last night when I was browsing Instagram, I did discover GrannySquare.me. So if you look up GrannySquare.me as a designer on Ravelry, they have a whole lot of different Granny Square designs, which are the most inventive, creative, adorable, like little patches that I have seen. And I'm pretty sure they are all free as well. So now I have like a third granny blanket in mind that I want to do. And I'm not a big crocheter, and I'm sure I don't need that many blankets. But anyway, check that out. Really fun. Let me know if you are wanting to join in, and if you know what you would like to make, and if you would like a Ravelry group. Okay. Moving on, we are going to start off with handy dandy swatches. Just let me have another bit of tea. My throat is just a little bit dry, so I feel like I'm drinking a bit more than I usually do. So yes, I don't have any FOs, so handy dandy swatches instead of FOs today. I have been going a bit swatch mad. You would think that I'd be going swatch mad for my own upcoming make along, but no, I'm actually going swatch mad for another make along that is run by the Yarniacs. It is my favorite make along to participate in. It's an annual one that they do every year that runs from, well, for us down here, down under, it is running from our winter solstice to the spring equinox. So that means that for the Yarniacs, it's the summer solstice to the fall equinox. Anyway, it's the Colors of Fall knit along. And before they even start talking about it or set up the planning board, I'm looking up the Pantone color forecast and I'm already thinking ahead and planning like all of the things that I want to make. I get so excited about it, and I have about 5 big projects that I want to do. Of course, I can't do all of them. The first swatch that I wanted to share with you, don't tell me, I've left it over there. I will be back. Thought I was prepared, but I really wasn't, was I? Anyway, the first project that I swatched for is the Wingspan shawl by Kyle Vey. This shawl I discovered from I was going to say Rocks. No, that's the Ravelry group. Roxanne Richardson's YouTube. She finished off someone else's Wingspan, and it's just such a stunningly beautiful pattern. It is meant to be really complex and time consuming, so I'm looking forward to the challenge, but I am only planning to make the smallest version of the shawl because that is all that I have yarn for the yarn that I want to use for it. And that is this beautiful Noro yarn here. This is my first time ever using Noro yarn, and this particular one is Flower Bed Fine. And I actually picked this up in Japan earlier when I was there on holiday earlier this year. I picked up 2 skeins because that was all that they had left of this particular color, very creatively named 1269. There are only like 2 of these yarns stashed on Ravelry of Flower Bed Fine, but it seems like they previously had another yarn called Flower Bed before, and there's a lot more of that. And when I was looking to see what this color would knit up as, I think I actually found that, so this is color 1269, but if I search for color 269, they have, it looks like the same colorway in just different yarn bases. Anyway, that's going into more detail than I had intended to. I did this gorgeous swatch in linen stitch, my first time ever doing linen stitch, on 3mm Likey needles. So that's the front of it there. That's the back. I have a feeling that the color variation in the yarn is going to come up a lot more obvious in camera than it does in real life, because that's often how these things work for some reason. It's so absolutely beautiful. It is going to be, oh, I'm so excited about this. It's going to be so gorgeous. If I did originally swatch this thinking that I might include it in my Colors of Fall entries, but because everything that I've heard about this project makes it seem quite intimidating and laborious, I'm thinking that I might just start it sooner rather than later, even though that knit along is actually starting quite soon, in like 2 weeks. I might start it sooner rather than later and not try to put the pressure on myself to finish it within the time frame of the CAL, which is 3 months anyway, but still, I'll be putting enough pressure on myself there. So I am now thinking that, yeah, I won't do it for the knit along. What else did I want to say about this? Oh, so I did this swatch on 3mm Leica needles, and so just their a wooden circular needle, and I am getting 32 stitches. No, that's the pattern. I am getting 31 stitches and 57 rows in this, and the pattern calls for 32 by 56. So I'm really, really, really close. And I could probably go down a needle size to 2.75 and get closer to gauge, or even 2.5 and get closer to gauge. But I don't know if you can see, but the fabric is a little bit like bubbly and warpy, which I think is due to the fact that the yarn is a little bit thick and thin. There's a bit here, actually, maybe you can see there's like a thick slubby bit there. So I think where the yarn is thick, we get like these bubbles going on because it's like squishier and denser in there. It's trying to fit in more stitches than what the yarn wants to do. So I'm either going to stick with the 3mm needles when I do it, or I may even actually size up, which means I'll be knitting at a looser gauge than what the pattern calls for. But as it's a shawl, I feel like it doesn't matter that much really. And if it means I possibly get a slightly bigger shawl than what I would have gotten otherwise, then that will be fabulous. Yeah, I think that was all that I wanted to share about the Wingspan. Oh dear, what is stuck here? Ooh, needle sticking out of the bag. All right, so that one's done. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is, which bag? This bag? No. This bag. Okay, so this swatch here, this swatch here, this is some beautiful cables, simple cables, but lovely cables that I have done in a faux in the round style, because this is for the early morning jumper by Yuko Shimizu, and this is one that has been in my queue for a long time. A lot of the patterns that are in my queue have been in my queue for a really, really long time. But I have done this in 3 different needles here. I have done it in 5mm 4 squares, 5.5mm 4 squares, and then because this particular leftover ball that I had just a little bit of yarn left, I did another bit in 5mm Addy metal needles just to see how that would do. And I blocked it. I did the gravity blocking thing that I have been doing, which is while it's still damp, I actually like hang it up, oops, so that the weight of the water in the swatch sort of mimics, in a way, I'm hoping, the weight of like the full garment, and will maybe try to give me a bit more of an accurate gauge. Hopefully, we shall see. The pattern gauge, so I did this swatch. I think I can't remember if I remembered to measure it before blocking. Anyway, I measured it after blocking, and I was getting somewhere in the vicinity of like low 30s stitch wise. And then I looked at the pattern page, and I saw that in the top section on Ravelry where it says the gauge, it was saying 22 stitches. And I was thinking, how the hell? This pattern calls for being knit in 4.5? I think it's 4.5mm needles. And I know that I'm a tight knitter, which is why I sized up when I did my swatches. But actually, yeah, you know what, just looking at my notes, 4.5, 5.55, that's what I did. Wooden, metal. Anyway, yeah, so 4.5 needles, which is what the pattern called for. I sized up because I'm a tight knitter. And then I read the gauge was meant to be 22 stitches. And I was thinking, how the hell am I 10 stitches over? Like, I know I'm a tight knitter, but surely, like, I'm not that tight of a knitter. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, what the hell is going on? Anyway, I did this swatch on 8mm needles, which is the biggest size needle that I have. And then while that was blocking, I looked back at the page again and I actually scrolled down to the pattern info, and it turns out the 22 stitches gauge was for ribbing, and the gauge for the cable is actually 30 stitches by 34. So I am actually pretty close with my original swatches, and I didn't need to do the other swatch. The closest gauge that I am getting is actually on the 5mm metal needles. So on this I'm getting 31 stitches. So that's the closest, but I'm actually thinking I really prefer knitting with wooden needles. I don't really like knitting with metal needles. I don't find it as comfortable to hold. But on the 5.5mm needles, I'm getting 32 stitches. So either I will stick with that and make it a little bit tighter than the pattern calls for, and therefore may need to knit one size bigger than what I had planned, or I will just assume that I'm going to get gauge on 6mm wooden needles, knit the intended size, and if it is a bit bigger, then that's okay, because it's meant to be an oversized pattern anyway. I am leaning towards that option because I only have just enough yarn to make this jumper. So I'd rather not have to size up, because that means I'll need more yardage, which I don't have. The only thing about this pattern that isn't really great is that it is only available in 3 sizes. I believe it was published in 2018, and it is it does come from a Japanese designer. So I don't know if it's, it's not super size inclusive because of the time that it was published in. There wasn't as much awareness about that kind of thing. And it could also be a cultural thing. I think, generally speaking, they're quite slim and petite over in Japan. I know that's a generalization, but maybe there just wasn't, like, the designer didn't see the need for making bigger patterns. Anyway, it is a free one, so I do tend to be a bit more forgiving about size inclusivity there. I still think it is really unfair, but I love this pattern and I'm gonna make it. Sorry. Yeah, so was that all that I wanted to share in that? Oh, yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to mention is that in this swatch here with the multiple needle sizes, on the smallest ones, I was finding that I did need to use a cable needle to do the cables, because it was such a tight, dense fabric that I was more in danger of having stitches come undone when I would take them off the needles to rearrange them. But for all the other sizes, because they were a little bit more comfortable and looser, that wasn't as much of a risk, because the yarn wasn't being like pulled as much. So when I released it, it wasn't trying to like pull itself out. So I was able to do that without a cable needle, which is fabulous. Let's move on, shall we? Because still so much to share with you guys. The second set of swatches that I wanted to share with you is, not that bag, this bag. Let me have a drink. So this pattern, this is for the V-back tee by Jamie Huffman. This is one of those ones that I'm pretty sure as soon as it was released, as soon as I saw it, I knew that I wanted to make it, and I had and knew the yarn that I wanted to use for it. And yet I haven't made it. So because there are a lot of blues, I didn't say what color I want. This is going to be a color match for the Angora color, which I believe is in one of the London palettes. Anyway, all of the colors that I like are coming from the same palette, because the colors are fall knit along references, the fashion trend forecast palettes, where there's usually a New York spring summer, a New York fall winter, a London spring summer, a London fall winter. For some reason, this year. I think they have the 2 New York palettes, but only 1 London palette. Anyway, I'm pretty sure all of the colors that I like are in the London palette. Although with this particular yarn, it has so many blues in it that I actually could probably reference every single blue across all 3 palettes. This particular yarn here is from Spotlight. It is Motivera, Not Just Socks, and it is so soft. It's so beautiful to work with, and it has bamboo in it. Let's see if I can tell you exactly. 50% superwash wool, 25% polyamide, and 25% bamboo. So soft. It feels so nice to work with. I only have 2 balls of this, so not quite enough to do the whole thing, but I also have this mess here, which is Schoppelwoll Fliegende Untertasse. This is one of those balls that when I bought it, it was wound up as one, I think, but you could separate it out into 2 matching balls to get 2 matching socks. But when I tried to knit the first sock with it, I completely stuffed up, and then in unraveling it, I ended up with all of these like messy little bits and pieces. So a bit annoying that I could have still maybe done like matching sleeves or something with that yarn, but because I've sort of messed up how I've managed the yarn, then it's going to take a lot of work if I wanted to try to match it. So I think I'm just not going to bother. I have only done the swatch in the Not Just Socks because that's going to be the main yarn I'm using, and this is the funny looking swatch here. I always try to be like really good when I start my swatches, and I think I'm going to do the right thing, cast on like double the amount of stitches that the swatch calls for. So I think this swatch was 22 stitches, 22 stitches by 34 rows. So in my head, I'm going to be so good. I'll cast on at least 44 stitches and I'll knit at least 68 rounds. But then, you know, I start working, I get that far in and I'm like, oh, this is just going to take forever. Like, I don't have the patience for this. And then I discovered a free pattern by Tin Can Knits called Swatchtastic, which is essentially making this shape here to do your swatch. So you still get the width to measure a full 10 centimeters. You still get the height to measure a full 10 centimeters, but you're not having to do as much knitting, which is absolutely brilliant. And I want to do all of my swatches like this from now on. So the Swatchtastic pattern, it's not this big messy thing that I have done, because I started off doing this swatch in the round, and on one side I was using one size needle, and on the other side I was doing another size needle. The Swatchtastic pattern actually just has you make a single triangle, and the idea behind it, which I absolutely love as well, is that if you don't need to unravel your swatches at the end of it, then you'll end up with a whole bunch of like different triangles, which you can then put together to make bunting, which is really cool. And I think I'm going to need like every bit of yarn to make this project, but for any future projects where I feel like I might have enough that I don't need to use everything that I have, if I do the Swatchtastic swatch, then it would be fun to have like the bunting as like a memento of like all of the projects that I do. Anyway, so this one I'm not quite getting gauge either, and it's a little bit tricky because in the pattern information on Ravelry, they recommend, they say that the row gauge is just as important as the stitch gauge, because there must be a whole lot of short rows in it. So they really want what you do, the areas that you work flat to match the areas that you work in the round. My row gauge is completely off already, so I may just have to ignore that entirely. But what do I want to say? So the 2 needles that I used for this are some 4mm Fibre needles, which are actually some copper needles. which I just thought sounded cool. And the interesting thing about the copper needles is that I found it grippier than you would normally expect from a metal needle. It's about as grippy as, I feel like it's about as grippy as the wooden needles that I usually use, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, I mean, after I had worked with it for a while, I feel like it did sort of become a bit less grippy. So maybe there was a coating or something on it. This is the first time I've used these needles. And maybe that was starting to come off, but I don't know if you can tell. But the idea behind these metal needles that I absolutely really love is that the copper will age, it will patinate. I don't know if you can see that. You can already see where it's like darkening where I've been handling it with my hands, and I absolutely love that. I did just buy one set of needle tips just in this 4mm size to see if I like them. And I do, I really like them. So who knows, if I ever need to get more tips, I may be getting some cypress. Anyway, 4mm cypress, and in the round blocked, I got 25 stitches, 33 rows, and knit flat, I got 25 stitches again, but 30 rows. And then the other side of the swatch that I did, oh, that's the same needle, was in this 4.5mm lantern moon. Interestingly, although these are wooden needles and wooden needles are meant to be grippier than metal needles, I found these to be a lot smoother and less grippy than these metal ones. These were so nice to work with as well with this yarn. Like, the yarn just glided on it so effortlessly, and they're so lightweight. They're so nice to use. I feel like when I've used these tips in the past, I haven't loved them, but with this yarn, it was a dream. It was a dream to work with. And I did get closer to gauge in this. In the round, I got 23 stitches, 31 rows, and flat, I got 22 stitches and 29 rows. And I do feel like that's close enough to gauge that I probably will just go for using these Lantern Moon needles. 1 stitch difference in the stitches between knitting in the round and knitting flat. I feel like I'm just gonna live with it. And of course the row gauge isn't right at all, but I also I don't know how this whole gravity blocking thing that I do is affecting, I don't know how well it's going to match what the finished garment is going to turn out like. So I'm kind of thinking I'm just going to go for it and be lazy. I really should do another swatch in 5mm, and if I do, I will go back to my normal 4 square knitting needles that I use for everything. But I honestly feel like I'm just going to be lazy and just stick with the Lantern Moon needles for everything, because I'm sure that if I do what the pattern recommends and use different needles for the flat bits and different needles for in the round bits, I'm sure that I'm just going to forget and end up using the wrong needles anyway. So since I'm close enough on the Lantern Moon, I'm just going to knit that. And I did sort of just want to explain how I did this weird looking swatch. So like I said, I started in the round, 4mm on one side, 4.5mm on the other side. And then when it came time to swatch flat, I put the stitches for one side on hold, and then I knit the swatch flat in that direction. And then I did a row of purl, and then I did the other side in the other needle size. And then when I got to the tip of that, I just folded it over and bound it off with those stitches that I had put on hold, which is why this is a very bizarre swatch. Bit of fun, but yeah, there you go. So that is the second project that I'm planning to do for the Colors of Fall knit along. There are 3 others that are on my list, but they're going to be my top priorities. Okay, that's it for swatches. I think that's enough. How long has it been? Is my camera still recording? All right, let's move on to eyes and ears, shall we? So the other vlog that I have been watching that I want to highlight is Mina of the Knitting Expat. Her channel has been going for over a decade and she has thousands and thousands of subscribers, so I'm sure you're aware of her already, whether you watch her or not. But she is such a pleasure to watch. So if you don't watch her, I highly recommend it. She's so sweet and thoughtful, and she's so fast. She's such a fast knitter. I'm kind of jealous. When she started her vlog, she had only been knitting for about a year, I think, but you can tell in the projects that she does and the way that she knits and the way that she thinks about her knitting, that she really makes the effort to like learn and understand what it is that she's doing. When I first started knitting, it was just like following patterns and I mean, yeah, basically just that, just following directions for things that I wanted to make. And it was a little while, I think, before I started thinking through things more and trying to understand like how to read my knitting and just sort of like just understanding how the fabric sort of comes together and comes to be. But yeah, so it's really fascinating to hear the way her mind works, and she shares her design process because she started designing, and she shares like how she knits and all of this other wonderful stuff, and talks about all of her traveling. So at the point in time when I'm watching, because I'm still like, I don't know, 10 years in the past or something like that, she's still living in Bahrain, but I'm pretty sure from thumbnails that I have seen of future videos for me, past videos for real time right now in 2026, she moves, I think, to somewhere else, New York or something like that. Anyway, I have been so inspired by how fast she knits, and she's a flicker. So I looked up videos on flicking again, and I had sort of looked up other methods of knitting before. The only one that I'm aware of that I haven't tried is Portuguese knitting, but Mina's a flicker. So I looked up videos on how to flick, and I tried to do it, and I just can't get the hang of it. So flicking is like you're holding your needles like this, and your yarn is tensioned around your right hand in some way, and like you're just flicking the yarn over the point of the needle tip as you work it there. I just can't seem to get the hang of that movement. When I first learned to knit, I was throwing. And then when I did all of this research in different methods, the one that I settled on that I knit in now is continental. So the yarn is tensioned around my left hand, and I'm picking the yarn. I'm a picker. I pick the yarn with the right needle to work it. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm mainly happy with that, but I was kind of just curious to see if I could get faster on flicking. And in looking up all of those videos, I also came across one from Felicia of Sweet Georgia Yarns that I have watched and rewatched a few times, like over the years. And in that one, she talks about how when she knits continental, she finds that she does sort of like tense up. And that is one of the issues as well that I feel like I really need to be trying to combat, because I have a lot of like neck pain and shoulder pain and tension pain, and I do find that like I do notice that I sort of like tense up a little bit when I'm knitting, just because I'm so concentrated on what I'm doing. And Felicia was saying that when she does lever knitting, she doesn't seem to have that problem. So back when I had explored all the different methods of knitting, lever knitting was one that I had tried, and I was somewhat comfortable with it, just not as comfortable as I am doing continental knitting. But so lever knitting, it's more similar to the flicking method. So you're still tensioning your yarn in your right hand, but instead of holding your needle in your fingertips like that, you're holding it like a pencil. And it's meant to be, your right hand is pretty much stationary and your left hand does all of the work. So your left hand is the one that's like manipulating the stitches. So you put the left needle in and you I guess you're still kind of like flicking the yarn around the right hand needle, and then your left needle pulls it off. I'm explaining it really badly. Look up other people's videos where they're actually demonstrating it and talking through it, because you'll get a better idea. But I'm pretty sure lever knitting is what Stephanie Pearl McPhee does as well. Anyway, I do find lever knitting feels more comfortable to me and makes more sense than flicking. And I can sort of get like a decent speed going with it, even as a beginner in doing this method. But I like, while speed is a big factor in me wanting to master it, definitely also the comfort and ergonomics and just trying to look after my body is equally as big a factor, if not a bigger factor, in me wanting to learn it. Yeah, so actually when I did these swatches, I did this particular swatch, all of it done in lever knitting, since the V-back tee is a stockinette stitch pattern, as opposed to a cable one like the early morning. I thought that that would be a good one for me to practice my lever knitting on. So I swatched in lever knitting, and I'm going to try to make that whole project in lever knitting. Anyway, yes, so that's it for eyes and ears. We can now move on to handy dandy whips. Let's look at this big one here. So I, as you know, have been working on Plover by Jacqueline C. Slack. This is a gift that I am making for someone, and this little marker here is where I had left it when I last saw you, and I've done a fair bit since then, or at least it feels like a fair bit to me. So I finished the yoke, separated for sleeves, and knit the body until I ran out of a ball of yarn, and then I put those stitches on hold and went to the sleeves, because with this project I haven't really been sure. I bought this yarn on sale, this Alpaca Yarns Sporty, and I bought everything that they have, and I didn't really know if I'd have enough to make the project as I wanted to. The copy of this project that I have is from the Making Magazine Simple Edition, and that one is for a cropped version. I think my partner's just getting home. He said he's like shy to come in, but maybe I will just pause there. Sorry about all of the interruptions today, although that one was a little bit of a blessing in disguise, because my battery on my phone was running a little bit low and I was able to charge it while I had some lunch and had a nice chat to my partner. Anyway, back to Plover. What was I saying? Yes, so I decided, what did I do? So yes, I knit the yoke, I separated the body and the sleeves, and then I knit as much as I could with one full ball of the body. I'm explaining this really badly. I started knitting the body, finished the ball that I was on, started a fresh ball, made note of what row I started that on, knit as much as I could until I finished that ball, and made note of how many rows that took. And then I did one of the sleeves. And I have, oh dear, the bind off is coming undone. I should have cut this instead of leaving it attached. I don't know why I left it attached. Let's just hope that's okay. Looks okay. Yes, anyway, so I finished one sleeve to make sure that I'd have enough yarn for the sleeves. And thankfully, where is this attached to? Thankfully, I actually used less than one full ball to do the sleeve. And I have, where is this attached to? So many, oh, this is such a mess. Oh, this, I have this much left of that one ball that I used to do the sleeve. So that is excellent. It means I'm going to have more yarn left than I thought I would to finish the body and do like the band and everything else as well, which is excellent because I wanted to make this long instead of cropped as per the version that I have. So this pattern is actually now available as an individual pattern, and if you buy the individual pattern you get directions for knitting both a cropped version and a full length version. I only have the cropped version because I have the version from Making Magazine, but I was able to look at the schematic for the full length version, and I think that the full length actually does just go to the hips. But I had been wanting to make this long, like knees, or even longer if possible, or something like that, just because I feel like that's what the recipient would like. Hopefully I am correct there. But anyway, so now that I have finished the sleeve and I know how many balls I have left to do, and I know how far I was able to get on the body doing one ball, I was able to do some calculations on on how long I could actually get it. And I'm just going to refer to my notes here. Yeah, I did a whole bunch of calculations and wrote them down. So one ball I was able to do 43 rows of the half brioche stitch on the body. If I use 3 more balls for the body, that gets me to that gives me 129 rows, which means that basically I did the calculations so that I would know how much yarn I need to leave to do the band once the body is done. And how I calculated that very roughly is, you can see on the cuff here that there's just a little bit of stockinette to finish off the cuff. So before I started that, I measured how much I had left of this, and then I weighed how much I had left of this, and then when I finished the cuff I weighed how much I had left of that, and then I know how many rows and how many stitches of stockinette that is. So I just did the math to figure out, well, if I knit the body this long, then the band around the whole thing is going to end up being like roughly X number of stitches, same number of rows. So if I multiply the grams that it took me to knit this by whatever to be able to get that band done, then I only need like 29 grams, hopefully, to do the band if I get it to a length that's like 65 centimeters below the underarm or something. And the one ball is 50 grams. So I think if I just leave one ball to be safe, then I should have plenty to do the band. And I'd rather have leftovers than run out in doing the band, because it'll be like nearly 500 stitches or something like that to do the band. So I would hate to have to rip that out and start again. And I do think I'm going to get the length that I want with the yarn that I'm going to have left, if that makes any sense. Interestingly, the biggest issue that I have had with making this is just sort of keeping track and working the correct stitch. When I did the swatch for this, I was saying that the half brioche stitch I just found it so fluid and I was able to just flow so smoothly on it. Since I have started working this, the biggest mistake that I have been repeatedly doing throughout this project is somehow my mind just defaults to knitting full brioche. Even though it's not something that I have done lots of, my mind just automatically, when I am not really paying attention to what I'm doing, I'll start working brioche on both sides instead of just on one side. So there's been a little bit of like tinking back to fix that there. Usually I notice after like maximum like one row of doing the wrong thing, so it hasn't been too much tinking back, but it's kind of amusing me that that's been my major mistake there. Yeah, let me put this on and show you what it is looking like. At the moment, the sleeve is the right length for me. I'm pretty sure the recipient has longer arms than me, but this hasn't been blocked yet, so it should grow with the blocking. And also, this is quite fitted on me, and the recipient is quite a bit skinnier than I am, so it should hopefully be the right size, the right oversized amount on them. But yeah, you can see that it's kind of just fits me, and the sleeve length is kind of just right on me. It is not baggy at all, and there is no like extra length there. So hopefully once it's blocked, it comes out good. You can also kind of see that my stitches start looking really sloppy in the bottom half of the sleeve, and that is because as you can see, I knit the sleeves using some of the swatches that I had done without having undone the swatches and soaked them to try to get the kinkiness out of it, which is what you're supposed to do if you're knitting with yarn that has previously been knit. The other sleeve is going to be exactly the same. I have a bit of a ball that hasn't been knit, and then eventually I'll get to the rest of the ball that has been knit. And honestly, I think like normally I would do the right thing and wash wash yarn that has previously been knit before I knit with it, but just because of what this stitch looks at and how loosely it is knit, and I know that blocking will kind of smooth that out, I'm sort of just going for it and hoping it turns out all right. Was there anything else? Oh, the other thing that I am not sure of that I haven't quite decided on, and it would be great to get your opinion on, which I know is hard because you don't know who it's for, but she doesn't have much of a booty. So I am thinking maybe I don't need to do any increases for the hips, but I am wondering if I should just do a little bit of increasing for the hips anyway, just in case, or if I should just knit straight down and knit it long. So let me know what you think on that there. If I do increasing for the hips, I'll probably just do a couple of increases at each side seam and possibly one in the center back as well. And that will be it. So increase by 2 stitches in each of those 3 spots, or in each of those 2 spots if I don't do one at the center back. If you have any thoughts on this or any experience knitting really long cardigans, please let me know. The other thing that I actually wanted to mention that I thought was interesting with this design is with the yoke, if I can find the right spot, you can see that when there are increases, I hope you can see, that they kind of grow out of the bit that looks like the knit stitches, if that makes sense. So you kind of see that the increase here where it splits off there, that's coming out of the knit stitch. But for the sleeves, if I can find the right spot here, when there have been decreases for the sleeves, see how here it's kind of just like the knit column there, it just disappears. So instead of doing the decrease so that the two knit columns merge into each other, it's the, for lack of a better word, it's the purl columns that sort of like merge into each other. I just thought that was interesting that they aren't done in the same way from the yoke to the sleeve. Yeah, and then the other fascinating thing, oh dear, I really should just, I have stuffed. Oh no, have I lost my bind off? Let me just do a little bit of rescuing. Yeah, I possibly need to fix that and actually cut the yarn so that it doesn't keep coming out. Whoopsie daisy. And now I have forgotten what I was talking about. Oh, yeah, no, the other thing that I found really interesting about this pattern, which I kind of like, is that the whole thing is done on the same size needles. So the cuffs and the button band, neck band, all of that kind of thing, you don't use smaller needles for. It's all done on the same size needles, which is brilliant. And I feel like there was one more thing that I had to say about this. Oh, I am choosing buttons. Did I put the buttons in the bag? I did not. Oh, I'm so disorganized. Are they in this pouch? Nope, they're not in this pouch. Well, I'm choosing buttons. I'm choosing buttons, and I pulled out two lots of buttons from my stash. Either some simple grey ones that I have enough of to put buttons all the way down the length of it, or I have some brown buttons. They're actually red buttons, but the back of them is a brown that suits this really nicely. But I only have 5 of those, so I would only have enough buttons to go from the top to like hip length. And I know that people don't generally button up the buttons below the hip anyway, but I feel like it would just look weird to have the buttons stop at the hip and not run all the way down. So I'm probably going to end up using the grey buttons, but we shall see. Hey folks, Future Bobbie here. I was packing up all of my stuff and I picked up this, which was my Swatch bag for the Plover, which I had pulled out, and this is where all of my buttons are, so I can actually show you. I had pulled out a lot, actually, that I thought were the right size, but, so my main criteria when I was looking through my button stash was to find ones that are the right size, because in one of the swatches that I had done, which I have now re-knit into the sleeve, I had done the buttonholes as they're written in the pattern. So I was looking for buttons that I had that were the right size for those. I have a couple of options here that are black, but really I think that they're going to be too strong against the cardigan. So I don't think I'll be going for the black options. I also have these black and gold ones, which I think are quite pretty, but again, I think they're going to be too dominant against this yarn in a way that I'm not really happy with. There were these brown ones in the bag that has split open, but I think they're just, let's see if I can hold that there for you. They're just the wrong kind of brown. I don't think they work. And I do only have 5 of those ones, so not quite enough. And then these here are the brown ones that I thought actually annoyingly look quite nice. So they're actually red buttons, but if I flip it so that you're seeing the back, it's a flecked brown that I actually think looks really lovely, but I only have 5 of those as well. And I don't really know if they'll really work well if they're used the wrong way around, because they are ever so slightly concave. So if they're the other way around, the concave is kind of like facing the wrong way. And then these ones here are the grey ones that I have plenty of, which are probably the buttons that I'm going to end up going with, because they kind of just like blend nicely into the fabric. If you disagree, let me know, but considering size and quantity and that I'd really rather not buy buttons, odds are I'm going for these, but let me know if you disagree. Anyway, please let me know what you think about the hip thing if you have an opinion. However, I do hope that I will have this project finished by the next episode in a fortnight, because in a fortnight, the Colours of Fall knit along will be starting, and I will want to be giving all of my attention to that, especially since not long after that, my own knit along, craft along, make along will be starting. So I have a lot on my plate. The only other project that I had to share with you guys is just a itty bitty little one, the beanie that I have been working on as a gift for someone else. So previously when I showed it to you, I was up to this marker here, and I have done that much on it. I need to do just another 10 rows, I think, before I start the decreases on that one, but still loving it, still like really enjoying how the yarn is working up and all of those beautiful colors. And yeah, looking forward to having this one finished. And when this one is finished, I will be doing another one in a different crazy Zauberball colorway. Oh yes, this yarn is Shopper Wool Zauberball Crazy in the Early Bird colorway, and I am knitting it on 2.5mm Lacquer needles, and the pattern is the Rib Toque 120 by Michelle Porter. Yep. So that's a nice simple one to share with you there. What else? That's it for handy dandy, at least. I did have a, excuse me, dry throat. Slow down, breathe, it's not a race. Sorry, I'm keeping you here so long. I had picked out an eye candy to share with you, but since I feel like I have been warbling on and on and on, I will skip it this episode and move on to Multicrafty. And I have a crochet project to share with you. This is a project that I actually started in late 2022. It is the Cactus Hand by Svetlana Harova. It is a paid for pattern, and I had made two of them I had made one each for two of my cousins for a Christmas present in 2022, and I'd always intended that I would make one for myself. But I started it, and then I didn't like the yarn that I had chosen for myself, so I ripped it out, and it's just been hibernating ever since. The yarn that I crocheted theirs on is this from Spotlight, Four Seasons Montana, in this green tweedy color. I don't have the yarn that I originally started for myself in here, but I decided that for this project I really want to try to use up some of my acrylic blends. So I have here, this is all that I had left of some Sirdar Click DK, which is an acrylic wool blend. And in my efforts to try to use it all up, I decided to hold the yarn doubled. Once I had done the fingers, I realized that I wouldn't have enough to finish the whole hand, but I still just kept going because I wanted to see how far I would get with it. So I still have maybe that much left to go on the hand. And yeah, I don't have enough. I could just make the bottom of it this green, but I don't know if I will be happy with that. I was contemplating just ripping out the hands, leaving the fingers, and doing the hand as this yarn held doubled with this yarn. But again, I feel like that's just going to look weird and I'm not going to be happy with it. I think what I'm really going to have to do is just rip out the entire thing and start over holding this yarn doubled with this yarn, and I'm sure it means that I will end up with leftovers of the Serdar click yarn, but if I do, I don't know, maybe I'll just use it in the pot because it's a cactus sitting in a little pot. And I have here as well, I have this bracken colorway of the same Serdar click yarn that I was going to use for the pot, and this is another Four Seasons Tweedy yarn that I was going to use for the dirt in the pot. And I have some navy of this as well that I was going to put in the pot if this wasn't enough, but I don't know, we'll just see. We'll just see how all of that goes. I'm doing this in the same way that I did the ones for my cousins, where I'm using these bendy foam rollers so that I can position the fingers however I want to really easily, and it's a really fantastic solution. But I only had 4 of these rollers left, and I actually cut one of them in half to stick into the thumb and the pinky, but because they're only like that long, I'm not happy with like you see these other fingers I can fully bend like all the way down because the bendy roller extends all the way down here, but with the thumb it stops here. So if I try to do like that, it's not really going to hold. So I went to Kmart the other day because that's where I bought these foam rollers, but they no longer have small packs of these. They have a 28 pack at the moment, which gives you 3 different sizes of these rollers, which is good, but I don't need 28. I just need a few. So I actually just went onto Alibaba and ordered some in the right diameter, because these are actually a little bit fat as well. So I'll use one of these for the thumb, and when I get the slightly slimmer ones from Alibaba, AliExpress, I'll use those ones for the fingers when I start over again. But that is my handy dandy crochet project. I'm using a 4mm hook on this one, and it's coming out well. It's just probably gonna go in hibernation for another couple of years, to be honest. That's it. Am I still recording? Yes, I am. Thank you so much for still being here. My very last segment that I always like to end on is Heart Full of Craft, where I share something that I am grateful for. And this episode, it is... one of the other people that I have started watching recently is Hey Brownberry. So that is Marcy, and her channel is Hey Brownberry. And she had a fabulous tip for if you get motion sickness when you're in a moving vehicle. And she said that she uses those travel bands that you get that have like a bead that presses on some point on your wrist. And I'd seen them before and I'd heard about them, and I'd always been skeptical about them, so I had never tried them. But I can't knit in the car or on a train. I can't read. There was actually, like when we were traveling in Japan earlier this year, one of the times when we were on the Shinkansen going from one place to another, I actually tried to do a bit of my travel journal on the train. And I could feel that I was getting motion sick, but I was stupidly determined to like get my travel journal up to date, because I felt like if I let it fall behind, then I just would never like complete the whole thing, and I wanted to keep it as a memento. Anyway, that was the worst travel sickness I have ever had in my life. I was just like, for hours after, I was just dizzy and felt sick and felt like I was like gonna throw up, and I didn't do much for the rest of the day. I wandered around a little bit. But anyway, long story short, I get motion sickness. I didn't used to when I was a kid, but as an adult, I get motion sickness. Anyway, after Marcy said that about those travel bands, I decided that I would give them a go. And they work. They really do work. I have left them in the car because that's where they live, because that's where I can do my travel knitting and where I need them the most. So I have only Well, I've tried a few times just to be able to like look things up on my phone while my partner is driving. But the other day we had a long car ride. And I did actually bring this with me because as it's just ribbing, just knits and pearls, it was pretty easy, a pretty easy project to take along in the car and not really have to look at it. And I was able to do it. I have like here and there in the past, I have tried knitting without looking. I've tried knitting while walking and I'm very slow at it, but I can do it. And I was really pleased that I was able to do some knitting, some very slow knitting, but some knitting in the car. So that is what I am grateful today. And of course, as always, I am so grateful for all of you choosing to spend your time with me, whether it is when this comes out or sometime way in the future. Thank you so much for giving me so much of your day with the limited time that we all have and with so many other great things to be watching, so many other wonderful vloggers and what have you out there. Thank you for spending time with me today. I think I forgot to say earlier in the episode, but if there is anything that I have mentioned, there should be links for it in the video description down below. If I have missed anything, please let me know and I will update it. And you can find me on Ravelry and on Instagram and obviously here on YouTube as some form of Bobbie Olan, because that is my name. And that's all that I have to share. I still have hopes to move to weekly videos, but still sticking with fortnightly at the moment. So I will see you in another couple of weeks. Let me know if you plan to join in the Garter and Granny along, and yeah, enjoy your crafting. See you in a couple of weeks, in a fortnight.